Right on time. Okay, welcome everyone. This is the session about, or the final session in our learning pathway. Have you guys attended the previous ones? Or any of them? Some, yeah. So, the previous ones I've tried to show the whole breadth of the real-time intelligence stack. Have any of you worked with real-time intelligence or real-time analytics before? A few, not many. Right, so real-time intelligence in Fabric is the place to go for your streaming events. Anything that has closer to real-time. I mean, real-time is, again, one of these fantastic marketing terms where it depends. I'm a consultant, so I will say it depends a lot. But yeah, it's near to real-time-ish. Powerful set of tools for you, even though, as you might see if you work in it a bit, it is still a bit buggy for some things. So we'll see if I can get to show you all the things I need. But the most powerful engine here, and one of my favorite tools in Azure is the Kusto engine. And that part is running very well inside Fabric in real-time intelligence. So we'll cover some of these different aspects. So I'll go through the security part of the Fabric, securing Fabric, and then real-time intelligence. I will cover a bit about infrastructure as code approach. What can I automate? Automation with infrastructure as code, and then automation with PowerShell. Security inside Fabric. We have to think about authentication. We have to think about networking. Then there's the permission model that is not as much Fabric as Power BI. But of course, since everything now is Fabric, yeah, there you go. And then there's the security on the compute engine level. So there's several different things here. Going forward, Microsoft will at some point launch what they call, or what they used to call, one security, unified security approach, where you have everything in one place. But for now, we have several different places that we need to think about securing. And one of the reasons for this is, if you see this high-level architecture of this, you have your browser, where you connect to your tenant. Then that, of course, then authenticates with Entra. Do you know what Entra is? Some do. Have you heard about Azure AD, for those of you who haven't heard about Entra? Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's just that at some point, Microsoft Marketing, bless their hearts, found it a lot more sensible to rename something that was established. I don't know why, but they did. Then the web front end. And it is important to remember that we have front end and back end components in Fabric, because these things don't necessarily talk to each other in the same way. There are APIs behind here, and this is important both when you're thinking of security, but also when you're looking into things like bugs and automations and, well, automations and maybe bugs. So in all of this, when we are looking at Fabric, we are approaching the front end part, but we need to think also for the back end. Yeah. And that's also where because that is no longer the Power BI capacity that used to be the premium capacity. Now everything is in Azure, which means that even though Microsoft is doing a lot of background security and so on, there is still some network isolations and things. And if you're working in a secure Azure tenant, the Fabric capacity has to be handled in a specific way. So keep that in mind. So yeah, Entra ID. Inside Entra ID, of course, our users are in Entra or in Azure AD are our email addresses. And those email addresses are the ones we sign into Power BI with. And then we are able to, or our admins can attach that or add that username to a security group, which makes it a lot easier to handle security by saying, okay, you are a user, you are an admin, or you can have elevated security, so you can say, okay, today I wanted to go in as an admin, you sign in on that, and then you get access to the different things that you are in that context. Then we have the networking part, because we have, some of us have to work with tightly controlled virtual networks and Azure tenants, as well as closed off Power BI or front ends. And some of us might be an easier way, so we don't have to think about it, but it's still, you have the inbound part, because people will connect in, we will have to have traffic coming in. You can set up a private link, and that private link then means that we shut off so that only some people can access it via virtual gateway, for instance. You can have conditional access, and that's something that you divide or add into Entra. So conditional access might be whitelisting and so forth. Sorry. And then, of course, you do have the on-premises data gateways to be able to pull data off from on-prem. I mean, it sounds like that is an outbound thing, but it is an inbound, because the way that the on-premise data gateway works is that when you install the gateway on a VM or in a computer in your network on-prem, it will open a tunnel to the Power BI tenant or to Azure. So that is an inbound to Azure thing, and then the outbound connections piggyback on that to get data out again. So you have to treat that as an inbound connection, even though it's a two-way thing. Outbound, you can do trusted workspace access. And that trusted workspace access is, again, that you're dealing with locked down networks. You can say that the workspace is trusted, which means that it is allowed to connect via private endpoints into your private networks. You have the managed VNets. Again, this is important when you're locking things down. Managed private endpoints, I will show you one case of how that will work. Right now it's quite restricted. It's only Spark and event streams. And for real-time intelligence, of course, it's event streams we're talking about. And they are only able right now to connect to an event hub or an IoT hub that is behind the managed VNet. I will show you how to connect to that one as well. So the permission model, this is a Power BI or a Fabric thing, where you have a security that allows you to secure a workspace. Of course, everyone in Fabric will get their own personal workspace, but then you create workspaces where you can do things. And all the different real-time intelligence objects are item level or asset levels on a workspace level. So the workspace allows you to give admin access, member access, contributor access, and viewer. And all of these means that the admin can do anything on this. A member can see and work on the data as well as spin up new items. A contributor can see and read and work with the data, read and write. And a viewer can see all the data and all the items inside the workspace. The last part is, of course, the one that is not here, the non-existent access right, which means that if you're not in any of these roles, you will not see the workspace, and you can't access any of the things underneath, unless we go to the item level, which is, I forgot that one as well. Again, because you have these trusted workspaces, you can assign a workspace identity. So it is a principal, service principal, that you can assign to a workspace. You create it from the workspace. I'll show you how to do that as well. And then you can use that to access secured data in your Azure tenant. Item level is the next level down. And again, you have your admin user viewer and unrestricted viewer. Unrestricted viewer is a real-time intelligence thing, and I'll talk about that afterwards. But again, you have your admin that can do anything, user that can read and write and change the data, and a viewer can see and read data. And in the case of the unrestricted viewer, that you can put some limitations on what a regular viewer is allowed to see. So we have to think about where to do what. We can grant somebody access to a workspace, and then they can get access to everything underneath. Or I can say that, okay, I will expose this data set that is residing in a lakehouse, or I can give you access to this view in a Kusto database. And then if you get access to that view, you can see that view, but nothing else. So you can share data or share access on different levels, and you have to keep that in mind. And of course, you can use, and it's a best practice to use AD groups to grant access. So it's easier to then change out the users rather than have to update the workspace or permission level every time somebody new comes in and somebody leaves. Yeah, you also have the ingester role on the item level, and it is because you might have to grant access, or if you're locking things really strictly down, you want to have access to certain services and service principals that are allowed to ingest data on LAN data in your data set. And you have your monitor, which is, again, if you want to grant access to a third-party tool or an external monitoring tool, you can do that as well without giving and opening up wide for everything. And since one of my main gripes with Fabric right now is that when you're the monitoring tools that you have, they are tied to the capacity. So whenever the capacity is throttled, the monitoring tools die as well. So when you have troubles, you can't see what the trouble is anymore. Good fun. We have a lot of us MVPs, among others, people here in the front here, have been whining to Microsoft about that for a little while. So hopefully they will take the hint and do something with it. Compute engine is one of the items under a workspace. But because in Fabric we're talking about different compute engines, and all the different compute engines, I mean Spark, SQL, Power BI or Vertipack, and Kusto, they are compute engines, and each of them have different mechanisms involved to grant security on a finer or lower grain of data sets. So let's talk about the Kusto engine, because we're in real-time intelligence today. That is, of course, then Kusto or KQL. You can grant an application or a user authentication rights to your database. You have role-based access control on that. You have objects permissions, so views, tables, functions, that kind. And you have what's called a restricted view. And again, restricted view is a way, because you have your viewers, you can say, okay, I have these tables, but then I have that table where I have GDPR data, or PII data. And I do not want anyone to access that apart from the ones who are actually applicable to reach that data. Then you can expose or lock down the views with a restricted view policy. And then only the people that have been designated as unrestricted viewers will be able to see all the data, and everybody else, regular viewers, will see the data that has not been restricted. So it is one of several ways to then minimize the exposure of sensitive data. The second method of minimizing sensitive data is row-level security. And if we start looking into this, question, yeah?
Question about
So if I create a shortcut from OneLake to my Custo database, can I apply the same things there? You can't, no. It's, but if you build an external table on top instead, you can. You can do at least use row-level security on top of an external table.
So it means I have to have access rights to Custo database? Because admin creates the shortcut and then user uses it.
Yes.
The user has to have access to.
Yeah. So yeah. So when you're creating a connection, the user has to have access rights to that to the item that you're connecting in to be able to use it. Yeah, T-shirt. We have some swag up here, so good questions get swag. Yes. That was a lousy throw, sorry. Right, so again, let's go on the workspace settings. First of all, you can go into your admin portal, and you can go down to workspaces, and here you will see workspaces. You will see which capacities they are on. And in this case, let's go into this. And I can look at the access rights that are there. So I can go in here and you can see if we have... it runs into my AD and fetches the security group I had created. And I can add that as a contributor because these people are trusted, so I'll add that there. And then we can have, let's see now, do that as a viewer. We can have, Devang is a PM from Microsoft. He just entered the room here. So it's, I'll add him as a viewer. I don't trust him enough to do anything else. Then when I go back to my workspace, I can also manage access from within the workspace. And then I can add people, or I can see them, as you can see here, I've already added them, so they are visible for me here. Then we have our Custo database. So that was the event house, sorry, and here we have the Custo. And I can start working with adding the row-level securities and everything that I need in here. So again, it's a very powerful tool. So you have things like, okay, let's look at specific who can do principal things on my clusters, the compute part, compute engine. And we can return a JSON object that shows me the users that have access. Surprisingly enough, it's just me. On my own tenant. I can grant access to a specific database as a user, and this is a dummy user. I've granted access to that, and I can screw that. I'm not going to give him access anyway. I'll drop it, and it's gone. And then, of course, the add users, admins, restricted viewer, and so on. So it's basically just changing the wording or the title of the role, and it's the same command that I run. I can, on the row-level security part, I can grant access to a user or to a group, and I can say, okay, you will get access to whatever data is in your region. I can say, okay, you can get access, but I will mask the email because that's the PII data I have in that table. And then it's just do an extend command and say, okay, email addresses will just be 4 stars. I can show table users. And again, this is a table command, but it can also be an external table command. So if external tables are the ones that you attach to either a CSV file, it can be a database or something. Again, it's an external object that you pull in. And here I then list out all the different users that have a principal connection to it, or principal role. And you can see here the Trident admins, Trident users, those are leftover code words from the time when Fabric was called Trident, which was the code name for it when we were testing it out. I can also say that managers, or people that are part of the managing or manager AD group, are allowed to see everything. So even though I have row-level access saying locking things down, I can say, okay, but these people are allowed to see everything. And then it will look something like this. Maybe I should just zoom in a bit. It's a bit easier to see. So you're basically able to do very fine-grained control on this. You can also do materialized views and grant row-level security on materialized views. And the difference between a materialized view and a regular view, at the materialized view is data is being loaded and refreshed. So it has a maintenance cost to it, but it means that it isn't computed every time you're querying the view, whereas a regular view is, of course, computed at runtime. And here are the restricted use policies. So I can run one of those, and there's an alter table command, and then I apply the policy. And Kusto works with policies on all kinds of rules. So I add the policy of restricted view access, and now a regular viewer will not be able to see this table anymore. If I'm uncertain of what views or tables have been granted or been restricted, I can run show table star. In this case, it means show all my tables that have a policy restricted view access. You can change this show table policy to some other policies. So but in this case, we just wanted to see, and for some reason, it's the one that I just added. I haven't done any others. Okay, it doesn't really let me show you anything here. So Kusto has a very fine-grained access control on objects, tables, database, on the different roles. As I mentioned as well, if we want to, I'll go up on the workspace. If I want to connect to things that are being protected behind virtual networks, I can go into the workspace settings. As you can see here, I've created a workspace identity. So it's a trusted identity. I have given that access to my secured network, my event hub. And it is service principal. It has gotten the name Moshpit, as you also saw here. And then I can also grant access to secured user groups, because again, this is an item level on the workspace. And then on the network security tab, note that it says only available for notebook and Spark jobs, but not entirely true. It is also event streams when it's connecting to an IoT hub. So I create an endpoint name. So I need to know the identity, object identity. I have that here. That is the object, the event hub I'm connecting to. And while it's not necessarily easy to see it here, you will be able to, you can find it up here. So subscription and outwards is the name. I've copied that so I don't have to start copying in the demo. Then I will say, okay, I only have Event Hub available for now. And then I need to tell my admin that I need access. It's now provisioning. And hopefully, when I go over here, you see the color of the tab over there. It means I'm now in my God mode admin. And I should be able to see, let's see now. Did it provision correctly yet? Oh, let's see if it is here. Ah, yes, you see here, please work. Oh, all right then, I'll prove. Normally it's, I mean, if it's a DBA in there, don't bother asking, so. And it will be updated. Everything takes more time when you're waiting for them, doesn't it? So it's like watching paint dry. So let's see if I can refresh. Yeah, okay, while we're waiting for that. So I've created an event stream, because you have to have that event stream ready for you when you want to connect to it. But let's see if it's, oh yeah, no, it has, it failed. How nice. All right. That is one of those things when you're doing demos, you're never sure if it actually works or not. Just try one more time to see the workspace settings, because sometimes it does work even though no. Okay. So today my demo gods decided I wasn't allowed to do that. But when or if it had worked, I could now then have added the source. No, I did not want to have the sample data. I wanted an external source. I would connect it to the event hub, and I could have created, a new connection. And I wouldn't have to put in my event hub or my event hub namespace, as well as the event hub I'm connecting to, and use the credentials. And typically you want to use a shared access key or something that's similar. And then I could have started listening and streaming to that. The important part here is that when I'm doing this, this part. The test connection part, when you're connecting to a secured event hub, you have to remove that, because it won't allow you to test. So remove that and then close, and it will be available to you, and you can start building your stream and going forward with that. So let's see now. That was basically the security part. There will be more features added to this as Microsoft are working to get everything enterprise ready. But for now, let's look at the automation. What can you do? Well, I promised you that I would say what infrastructure as code is. We'll come to that afterwards. But look at the cute robots. Because the core part of automation in Fabric relies on the APIs that we are using. And the APIs, again, the front end and the back end communicate via the APIs. So as long as we can get to the APIs, we get to the same APIs that web front end is using, so we can do, or in the future, we can do anything that the front end can do typically, as long as we have the right access rights. You can use the event houses and do things with event houses. You can control the KQL databases, create them, drop them, add things to them. That means that you can run KQL query sets. So again, you can build your whole automation pipeline with, okay, I want to create a real-time intelligence with a workspace. I want to have these access groups attached to it. I want to have an event house, and that event house should have these access controls on it. I'm going to have an event stream, because that's the next stream. I want to have an event stream, and that event stream should have all these different objects in them, and then, boom, go out. Hopefully at some point we'll also be able to do data activator, but right now we can't. You have dashboards, real-time intelligence dashboards, you can create them. And attached to this API set, there is a C# SDK, which means that if you are a .NET developer, or you have .NET developers in your team, you can use that out of the box and build your own automations on top of it. You can access and do Azure DevOps and GitHub. I'll just show you. It's quite easy to set that up as well. So on the workspace level, I can go down to Git integration. And because I'm using I'm connecting to DevOps because that's the one I had set up here. I'll use my AD to connect. I'll find my organization and my project and my repo that I had created. I'll use the main branch. And then I have a folder where I want to store all the objects in the workspace. That is my real-time intelligence workspace. Connect it and sync it. And when I get back to it in a bit, that will sync all my objects into my DevOps account, which is here. So we'll look at that in a bit. Infrastructure as code is the best approach or the best practice approach when you are planning your entire Azure infrastructure or cloud infrastructure environment, because it can do anything from laying out your subscriptions, the networking between them, firewalls, and so on. And it is Terraform is one of the most often used. And Terraform, or Microsoft created a Terraform provider or library for Fabric, was launched in preview in September. And it is available to you, and it's documented on the Terraform library as well, so the Terraform site. Terraform works in what's called a desired state configuration. So when I'm creating a Terraform object, I say, I want to have these resources. And then it generates the code to create that, instead of the declarative approach where you have to say, I want this and this and this and this, and I want it to be in this way and this way and this way. So it's an easier way to work with, which is also one of the reasons why it's a best practice approach. However, the Terraform provider is new, so it's not as mature yet. But that also is able to use REST APIs, which means that, surprise, since the way to automate is connecting to the REST APIs, we are able to do all of the things listed on the REST APIs. And that means that you can, if your platform, your cloud platform engineers have a Terraform setup of landing zones and all the things in Azure, you can say, okay, let's bundle and add the Fabric environment into this as well. And suddenly you have a stronger approach, stronger secured features, and everything is then ready to be rolled out whenever you need a new environment. However, Terraform uses service principles when they deploy. And there are some limitations, and again, it's one of the reasons I say it's not quite mature yet, because not all Fabric resources support those service principles, which means that there are limitations on what you can create inside Terraform right now. That will also change over the next months. Or exact number of months, I don't know, so we'll see what Microsoft does. But I mean, this is a strongly popular approach, or an often demanded approach also in the community, so I'm suspecting that the right people in Microsoft will work hard on this. There are other infrastructure as code providers. I mean, you have ARM, which is the Azure Resource Management way of scripting things, and you have Bicep. And Bicep is also a declarative language that Microsoft has made, so it's an Azure native. But can you use Bicep for this as well? No. And you probably never will be able to do that. Because Bicep generates ARM, and the ARM templates or the ARM language is not API-oriented. So it's made for Azure. It's made for deploying Azure resources. So you can, of course, deploy your Fabric capacity using ARM, but you can't do anything else. So if you are in a shop that is Biceps-oriented and not Terraform-oriented, it will be, of course, hard to implement Terraform. And in this case, you will need to combine the Bicep code with either C# SDKs or our third option, which is PowerShell. And PowerShell is a powerful scripting language, and it has a declarative approach. As I mentioned, you have to state, these are the things I want, and this is how I want them to be. And there are no official PowerShell modules for Fabric yet. However, you can use PowerShell's quite powerful modules that exist for talking with REST APIs, as well as the regular Azure modules to authenticate and do all the things that you need. And then you don't need to use those service principles that Terraform are relying on. That's, by the way, also a weakness with Terraform in that when you're deploying things with a service principle, the workspace that you create is then also owned by the service principle, so you have to go in afterwards and change who can access and own that. But it is a powerful scripting language, and it's a lot easier if you're not a .NET developer, so it's a lot easier to learn how to use it. And there are lots of resources on how to learn how to work with it as well, so it's easier to get started with. But the good thing here is that Santa's helper over here has been working diligently all week to create a really cool setting for us. So, take it away.
Yeah, thank you very much. So,
and now I got the pip.
Oh, awesome.
Good. Yeah.
Okay, so the story here was I was giving a talk with my friend Rune at the SQL Saturday in Oregon, and we battled a little bit about Terraform versus Bicep, and I was a Bicep guy. And we found out what Johan already told you, that probably because Bicep is like a transpiler, it transpiles the Bicep code into ARM code, and there are no ARM objects for everything which is in Fabric. So this might not be an option that there will be a Bicep solution someday. So I felt a little bit bad about this because Bicep obviously was losing, and I was saying, well, this should not be this way. And so I decided on Monday morning to write a PowerShell module for this. And the thing is, I was really surprised how far I came. So the PowerShell module itself is hosted at the moment at GitHub. It's an open repository. You can just go in there, download it. I will push it to the PowerShell gallery as well, because for some reasons, I don't know, this didn't work this morning, but we will figure out. And when we figure out, then you can use it from there as well. So let's give a little bit of a demo what we can do. So this is just an arbitrary workspace. As you can see through the diamond, this is a Fabric workspace. And let's try to mess around a little bit with this Fabric workspace. So first of all, what we will do is I wrote a little bit the commands here so I don't type in demos, right? So first thing what I have to do is I have to import the module. This is something I have to do because the module at the moment is locally on my machine and it is not there where PowerShell searches for modules. This will be something you don't have to do it after I published it on the PowerShell gallery, because it then will be just downloaded to the right directory and this will work. So I will just do it here, put it in. The module was imported. Awesome. Next thing what we could do is I can just show you the commands that I created until yet. So this is work in progress. I will continue working on this, but first of all, let's see all of these commands. So you see there are commands like connect RTI account. This is the command you need to connect to the Fabric service, to the Fabric Web API. And then there are some get commands for things like get RTI event house or get RTI event stream. There are some commands for creating things like new RTI event house or new RTI KQL dashboard. We have remove commands and we have set commands, and the set commands are used to change things here. Okay, so let's start. What I also try to do is I try to give a decent help, because what I really don't like is loading some PowerShell modules from the internet and then you are left on your own and you say, well, I don't know how this stuff works. So every module, or not every module, every commandlet has a help page on it, and for sure, because usually I don't read these, right? Usually what I do is I just go for the examples, take this code, adopt it, right? And you can see, okay, here we have some code as well now for the connection as an example. So first of all, what I will do is I will connect to my Fabric from PowerShell like this. Let's see. This opens. I have to choose my user here. Okay, I'm authenticated. Awesome. So let's see what else can we do. So when you're working with this with the commandlets, one of the very most important things you have to have is the ID of the workspaces you would like to create the
PowerShell.
No, the Fabric things.
Fabric things, yes.
The Fabric things, right? So I have a commandlet for this as well, which is get RTI workspace. And you just put in the name. And if you do so, then you will get the workspace. And this is the workspace ID. This is the ID we need to deploy things to Fabric, right? Or to the Fabric workspace. And we have some more information on this as well. So let's try if we can, for example, create a new event house. So what we do here is I will just put it in, and this was not right. I will try it again. So it's rather easy. You just have to put in a name for it. You can put, it's optional, you can put in a description, and you put in the workspace ID. The workspace ID I already get from the workspace. So I put it in like this. And here we go. So you see a new event house has been created. You see this ID. This is the ID of the event house. We need it. I will just copy it because we will need it afterwards. And if we go back to our web user interface, we will see a Seattle event house, hopefully. There we go, Seattle event house, right? This is the event house, and this is the KQL database it created among this. So let's go a little further. So what we can do is I have commandlets to show things, like, for example, get RTI event house. It will show us all the event houses which are in these in this workspace. So you see there are different ones because I just tested the module while building it. What we could do is we can change things with the event house, and what I have to do here is I will, for XXX, this is not a valid number for sure. I will put in the ID from the event house, and I can just change the description here. And there you see this is a new description. I'm so creative. Okay. What we could do as well is we can now advance. For example, we can create a KQL database among this. No, this is not the right code. Let's do it this way. Okay, this is the ID. Okay, we can create a new KQL database on the event house. Oh, I have to put in the workspace ID. Yeah, I forgot. Okay. I will just do it like this. I didn't forget, but I forget the tick here. So this is a good thing why you never should type in demos, right? So, okay. So let's do this. And hopefully, it just came back, so hopefully we will have a new KQL database in our event house. Yeah, my new KQL database. Creative as always. So, and there are even more commandlets. There is, for example, one commandlet you can use to send commands to the KQL database, because after we created the KQL database, it is empty, right? And what we want to do is we want to create tables, we want to create update policies, whatever. There is another command we can use as well. This command is called, I will show you, come here. So this command is called invoke RTI KQL command, and we can use this, for example. I will show you an example here as well. Come here. So this works the way you put in the workspace ID, you put the KQL database name in, or what you could do as well, you could put in the ID, and then you put in a KQL command like this, for example, and this will create you, in this case, will create a table, right? And everything I did is I did it through the web API. I was talking to the product team, and the guy I was talking to was saying, no one does it to the web API, everyone does it through the SDK. But what I wanted to do with this PowerShell module is I wanted to keep the footprint of the PowerShell module very, very small. I don't want that anyone has to install SDKs or stuff like this. And yeah, well, and the last thing I will show, and then I will finish my thing, is what we could do as well is we can for sure get rid of our event house again through the remove command, like this. So we just, as well, this is always a problem if you selected something here and then press a right mouse button, then it will just copy this. Okay, I will do it like this, and if we go back to our portal and do a refresh, we should see that this is gone. Okay, gone.
Yeah.
And so this is something you can use, and we will extend it a little bit over the time. And this is something you can use to programmatically, if you're not into Terraform, which you can use to programmatically create things in Fabric, things.
Yeah, you can build deployment pipelines with PowerShell.
Yeah, you can, exactly.
Yeah. Did you mention that you have the GitHub repo up and running?
Yeah.
Because there is a public repo. We will.
This one. We even have a logo.
Yeah. I will, because right now I don't have the QR code for that. I have a QR code for my GitHub repo, but we will change that so the slides when they're uploaded, so that will point to the right one.
Yeah.
So you can get access to it, and it's free for you to use.
Exactly, and it will be even easier for you to use when we pushed it to the PowerShell gallery, because you only do import module power RTI, and then it will just install the module on your computer, and you're good to go.
Yeah. So there are still things in process on the APIs. They will evolve. One of the things that we can't do right now is create an end-to-end event stream. Yeah. What it only does is creating an empty object. Same thing with the dashboard. It can create an empty dashboard, and then you have to build everything yourself. Hopefully, at some point, they will make it so it's possible to actually create that.
Yeah. So one of the next things we will implement is, if talking about the dashboard, right? There is dashboard representation as JSON. You can download it from the portal, and what we will implement, one of the next functions will be that you could take this JSON and deploy it through PowerShell as well.
Yeah.
And maybe even download.
Yeah, because that means as long as we can start pulling what we've created out into a JSON object, it means that we can bundle it together into the deployment pipeline. We can start modifying the JSON, and then we can recreate or push out for new features.
Exactly.
Which means that it's even better when you're deploying from dev to test to prod. You can pull out everything that you need and deploy that out to the production workspace.
Awesome.
So we are there. I have now gotten the sync over to DevOps. As you can see, I've created the real-time folder. And these are the objects inside my workspace that I was able to grab. As you can see, there are not all objects that are being pushed. Right now, it's the custo, so my dashboard, my query set, and my database are being synced over, whereas the event streams haven't been pushed over yet. It might be that they come over time, but for now, it doesn't seem like they're being supported in this sync. But now I have everything in my, into my repo, so I now can start building deployment pipelines over this as well. And while Frank was talking, I managed to get the endpoints working. So if I now go in here and I add an external source, Event Hub, I will do a new connection. I'm just loading. Let's see, I will go over here and grab my namespace. And you see here that it has, it creates a connection name, and that connection name is just a JSON object. It's not very user-friendly. And at the same time, it means if you create more endpoints to the same place, it will, when you try to apply this, it will come with an error that the connection already exists. So you can actually then change that to something else. I can only use the shared access key, so let's copy that over. I forgot about that one. So, oh, come on. Settings, yeah. I was just uncertain of whether if I was on Event Hub or not. We'll add a passage. We'll do a manage. And not test. Connect. Success. Yeah. So each time you create an Event Hub, you will get the default consumer group. And that's called default, or $default. You are only allowed to have one consumer group per connection from Fabric to an Event Hub, which means that I recommend that you always create specific user groups or consumer groups on your Event Hub to use for that event connection that you're going. Okay, I'm not pushing anything to it, but I can now at least add it, and I have connected to a secured Event Hub. And I can start working. Okay, since it's trying to load, but there is no data to load, so that's why you can't see anything. But now I can then start adding translations and transformations on that. So, yay, success in the end. All right, we're starting to wrap up because we're running out of time. Are there any more questions?
We have 2 T-shirts.
I want to push data, streaming data to inform model in Power BI. How can I push the data? Because I have to process
Yes, how to do streaming data into Power BI sets is basically, yeah. So if you create an event stream, you are able to connect to that event stream using your Power BI desktop, and you can set it up to, but I don't think an import bubble will work. You have to do a direct query. But if you do that, it will refresh.
if I change, if I mix mode in the model and performance is go down.
Yeah, if you change to a mixed mode, it will not be very good performance, no. It's basically don't mix modes, and if you need to stream data, you need to do direct connection.
T-shirt?
Yes, T-shirt.
I will try to.
You can
throw
run
it.
down. No, we know you're horrible.
Yeah, I know. Is it? Is
He has a
uh,
daughter and not a son, so he hasn't been baseballing with her or throwing footballs.
Is it covered by our insurance? I will try. Yeah.
I told you, but oh, come on.
But
Frank.
nearly. It was.
Yes.
The direction was okay.
You are fired as my Santa's helper. Yeah.
Too bad.
Any more questions, by the way?
So is there no solution for his for what he's desiring?
Yeah, there is no solution for an import model because an import model is not made for streams.
So the only option is direct connection, is a direct.
Yeah.
Yeah, the option you have to
Yeah.
use is a direct connection.
Now, the other option is if you're thinking about having a dashboard which doesn't necessarily have to be in Power BI, you could use the RTI dashboards, which are more suited for displaying real-time data.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
This
the
is
third option is to dump that data into the KQL database
Yeah.
and connect your Power BI to that instead. Or expose that into your lakehouse because you can also dump it into lakehouse. I don't know where your Power BI model is connecting to.
Yeah, but the performance is the same, still down. With direct link. Direct link. The performance is bad. I tried before.
Yeah, but if we're removing the thing that, okay, one thing is that you need to get stream data into your model. But as long as that approach is that you don't need to have it real time, because then you wouldn't use import mode. So, okay, let's say that you just need to land that stream somewhere so that you can import it. Then you can import or land that in as a target in a KQL database, if that is where the rest of your Power BI data is, or you can land it to wherever that data is residing. So one option is if your Power BI data is in the data lakehouse or in the lakehouse in Fabric, you can land it directly there. A second option is to land it in the KQL database and then use something called the external table and continuous export mode in KQL, which means that KQL will then from every 2 minutes and upwards pull the data and export that data into your target, and then it will be available there. That's a SQL database. It is SQL Data Warehouse as well, I think, because it's a SQL. So that, or to a blob somewhere. So those are options that you can do. But as soon as you start doing import mode in a Power BI report, you are turning off the option to do real time. Okay? Yep.
Okay, when you use the term infrastructure as code here, I'm trying to grasp what exactly you mean. In my organization, what we call infrastructure as code is going to be deploying objects, assets, infrastructure to the Azure portal. Whereas when we're talking about deploying to the Fabric tenant, that's just an item. You know, it's on the SaaS solution. So as I look at the demo, I know that right now we don't have necessarily full Git support for all the different real-time intelligence objects that we have available, but I'm trying to grasp what exactly would you push as IAC? Would you be talking only about creating maybe the workspace identities and some of the networking aspects, or?
No, so what exactly and what I've been talking about here is infrastructure as code. If you see infrastructure as code only as deploying the network and objects in Azure. Well, one, Fabric is also Azure because the capacity is Azure. Two, yes, I would bundle the rest of what I have in my infrastructure as code repository in with the Fabric things, and then I would deploy as much as I can because, I mean, it depends on the use. If you're going to use this to redeploy, if you're in a consultancy or somewhere where you redeploy or recreate things all the time, or you want to make sure that you have backup of everything, then yes, I would do as much as possible in Terraform. Because then you could redeploy whenever you want. Okay, the data will of course be lost at some point if you don't do backups of that. But when you then have your GitHub or your DevOps account connected, so you have all the different queries and all the different objects created there, and then you can roll out whenever you need to. That is both a backup and the security, but it's also a way to deploy multiple instances whenever to reuse a qualified and tested deployment and environment, both for the SaaS solution and for your Azure parts.
And then, given that the story of source controlling in Fabric is all tied to the workspace, so you end up with a monolithic repo, do you have any advice on best practices as to maybe how to separate some of these items?
Yep. So my best practice is to have 3 environments. So you have your dev, test, prod, and in each of these, let's call them domains, because domain is an object in Fabric. In each of these, I have 2 workspaces, a front end and a back end, because then I can do my dashboards and my Power BI reports and everything in the front end, and then the developers have all the rest of their objects, the pipelines, the database, and so on, in the back end. Because then you can shift whatever you want to deploy when to that. That's my best approach.
Okay, yeah, I'm doing something similar, but maybe I'm calling it 6 workspaces where I have back end and front end. I have a dev workspace, front end, dev back end, and test front end, back end, and it's just getting hairy.
Yeah, but yeah, it's workspace sprawl is among the most problematic things with Fabric in that kind. So that's why 6 workspace approach is what basically the limit of what you can do right now if you want to reduce the number of workspaces you have. But and again, you can do if you connect them to domains instead. If you don't use domains as business domains in your organization, that is a good way to separate them.
Yeah, definitely be doing that. It's a sprawl, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
It's just getting
Yeah. So, but yeah, I've talked to people who are saying, okay, we'll need a lakehouse workspace and we need a data warehouse workspace and a data pipeline workspace. God, please no. Keep it simple.
T-shirt.
T-shirt, yes.
Semantic model is front end?
Semantic model is front end, yes. I define that as a user consumption ready thing, and then it's a front end and also gold kind of thing. So in a medallion structure as well, I do not use the different used workspaces to divide between the different layers. I use objects inside the workspace to divide between them. All right, I wanted to just point to that one if you haven't seen it already. If anybody thinks that it would be fun to stand up stage here and make a fool of yourself like we did, or you think that it's a good, it could be fun to try out, New Stars of Data has kicked off a lot of speaking careers. We are a bit too old for that, but we also got into speaking because people pulled us in.
That's true.
So Call for Speakers is open. Scan the QR code. You will be attached to a mentor that will help you, an experienced speaker that will help you and support you through your presentation. And then from there on, they will also help you to explain, if you liked it, how to go about getting speaker gigs in Data Saturdays, SQL Saturdays, and then finally PASS Summit, which is also a cool place to be.
Probably even attached to us.
Even attached to it, yes, because we tend to be there for some reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we have stickers.
We have also stickers here. Yeah.
Notebook
But now
stickers.
we're over time, and in the interest of that, this is Frank Geisler. We didn't put him on the show here. I pulled him in because I'm lousy with PowerShell, but he is really good. Kids stop in the street this time of year and start asking if I'm Santa, so I took the name SQL Claus. My name is Johan Ludvig. I work for Deloitte in Norway as a director. I'm also Microsoft MVP. Here in the US, I also get asked if I am David Letterman for some reason.
Yes.
Especially by drunken people in bars. I don't know why. But yes, this is my GitHub repo. The slides will be uploaded here. You will also be able to access them through the PASS portal later on, but you will find it there. And I will also add a link to the PowerShell module Frank made so that you can get access to this.
And if you have questions, just connect on LinkedIn and ask questions.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you.